People who grew up wealthy and were spoiled. What was something you didn't realize not everyone had did? It was only until later in life that I realized going out to restaurants daily isn't typical. I just figured that is how people normally ate. I thought home cooked meals were the special ones. For years and years when I was a kid I would look down on people who hadn't traveled well. Particularly people who did the same Disney cruises every year. In my mind I was thinking, expand your horizons. Go to Europe or China or Peru like my family does. Then I realized what a ducking snobby dickhead I was being, and now I don't do that anymore. Some kids make more money than their parents, even when they don't make a lot of money. My coworker and I make the same salary. She took her parents out to eat for her birthday because to them she makes a lot of money. My parents take me out to eat for my birthday because to them I don't make a lot of money. House servants. Seriously. They do all your chores and everything around the house. A friend of mine had a maid who lived with them as a full-time job and had a room in their pool house. That's true. I heard that from rich friends. They think everyone has servants. I remember watching them figure it out in middle school. At college I asked my pre-med roommate if it was safe to go to sleep hungry. I thought everyone had a vacation home somewhere and had a maid who cleaned the house. I came home from college my first year and looked around my neighborhood and saw it through different eyes. Suddenly I realized how big the houses were and how most had 3-car garages. That just felt normal to me until I went to school with people who didn't have those things. It's weird, isn't it? My girlfriend grew up in a neighborhood like yours. I grew up in a neighborhood where all the homes are less than 1,500 square ft and no garage. In her neighborhood, the homes are at least 5,000 square ft but less than $300 K. My neighborhood only has homes from $500 K $1 million. It just blew her mind. She thought she was loaded her whole life. For me, it was the inverse. I went to college thinking I was poor cause I didn't like in the $3 million neighborhood. Then realized in other cities those neighborhoods are middle class or lower. Real estate location is crazy. On the receiving end of this, some kid once bragged to me about how he has a pool table in his basement and then he asked if I had a pool table. Thinking he meant something like the table my parents kept near my inflatable pool. I told him of course I have a pool table. A private jet. We would always charter a private jet when flying for vacations or to visit relatives in other states. I would see all of the other jets at the airport, but just assumed that they were just much bigger private jets. I would actually be pretty jealous as I would imagine my family flying in such a large plane and having all that room. Turns out those were commercial flights with very little room at all. I was 15 when I finally realized this. Pretty middle class, but lived in an expansive suburb with almost zero apartment complexes. Always just assumed everyone had a house and didn't really understand the concept of renting a house or an apartment until I was 13-14 when I heard them talking about it on Friends or something. I am on the opposite end of the spectrum. I grew up poor and my mom cleaned houses for rich people. Most of the time she would babysit and clean. So she would bring me along as well because most of the kids were my age anyway. They would ask me questions like, if your mommy cleans our house, then who cleans your house and what do you mean you've never been to Disneyland? We go 4 times a summer. As a kid I didn't really think anything of it, but looking back I realize what a huge gap there was in lifestyles. If your mom cleans our house, then who cleans your house? My mom. I thought everyone had a lake house right on the shore. At the very least a second house. I guess I was wrong. I don't even have one house. You should get one. They're cool. I thought it was standard to take a limo to the airport or funerals. I actually thought my friend was lying when she told me she had never been in one. I took a limo ride to the airport with some friends because it was cheaper than a taxi. Not the rich one. In fact, I grew up dirt poor. However, 2 of my best friends grew up pretty affluent. One had thrifty parents who invested and saved. The other is the son of a literal rocket scientist and a Boeing engineer. The latter is actually pretty grounded. He tells stories and kind of laughs about stuff like, "Hey, I had a nanny throughout my childhood and I didn't realize until I grew up that was a rich person thing." The former just seems dumbfounded that I found the will to live. He's been to almost every continent. He's never had to worry for money. Has never had a car payment. And seems bewildered by how much things are capable of costing. The fact that I can't even afford health insurance and my car payment in the same month mystifies him. And why wouldn't it? His mom gave him $2,000 for a couch out of the blue. And I don't even have that amount of money to drop on my medical bills. They're good people. Though. They spend a lot of time trying to help me catch up and, whether they know it or not, are the only reason I still have a roof over my head some months. I try to pay them back the best I can. But they are pretty keen on telling me that I don't have to buy their friendship. They know I have it hard. They just want to help. My husband's family was loaded from the time he was 4 till he was 16. His sister had horses. Her cheapest horse cost my in-laws $16,000 to buy. My soul also competed in hunter jumpers from the age of 5 to 18. She also competed in ice skating and had a full wardrobe. For your information, those ice skating dresses are expensive AF. My husband's family also went on vacations constantly. They had tons of toys, dirt bikes, jet skis, cars, trucks, an airplane. They also put a pool inside their 4000 SQFD house. They had a maid. And a gardener. They also went to private school with a bunch of other richer shats. Myself thought that all people lived her life. Or at least they did if their parents loved them. My husband thought it was the norm. It was hard on my in-laws when they lost their business. It caught on fire. My husband, who was 16, learned how to adapt. Kinda. Seriously, he doesn't know how to dust. Myself, who was 18 at the time, still thinks she is a rich little thing. She is 30 now, and spends money like it is on fire. She doesn't cook, clean, or do any manual labor. I pity whoever is dumb enough to commit to her. I used to be spoiled as I was from a wealthy family, but my dad grew up on a farm and raised us the same way, so while I was spoiled I also had a pretty good understanding of that. My cousin, on the other hand, had her mind blown when she went to college and found out that not everyone has a maid. And not everyone grew up in a relatively crime-free environment. And not everyone can go to Disneyland every year. TBH, I was a little embarrassed when I heard about this because my family didn't even do those things and we grew up in the same town. I thought everyone had their own room. Nah. We just have our own corner. This is going to sound silly, but money. Like spare cash. I didn't realize until I went to college that everyone doesn't have extra spending money to spend on silly things like movies or an on-cafeteria lunch.